getting ready to do a stream with Bob. I'm going to talk uh, about Boardwalk Cash a little bit later on today, just in about an hour and a half from now. But I wanted to try out and make sure I had everything working properly because I kind of screwed this up last time. I was trying to host this yesterday. Um, so I am just testing out all the workflows of publishing this thing to YouTube and publishing this thing through to zap.stream. Just want to make sure that everything works properly. And I also want to make sure that I can share this out properly. So I'm going to actually, so I figured I would just make a thing here testing for the live stream we're going to do later by doing some quotes. I'm going to read out some quotes from the sovereign individual. A friend of mine sent me this link to a thread on Twitter, which where somebody was putting together a bunch of quotes from the sovereign individual, and I thought they were really, obviously it's a great book, and I'd say pretty visionary from what they were able to predict around things like Bitcoin and kind of the degradation of power of the nation states and governments. And I think those are topics that we all think about a lot and spend time trying to understand. So I'm going to see if I can share the screen here. See if we do. Can I share this screen? All right. So you can now see some of this, but the organization feels a little messed up. So maybe we go something like this will be about fit right. So okay, so this is the quotes I was reading from this Twitter thread, and I want to make sure that we've got the thread up yet. So yesterday's embarrassing verdict in the Tornado Cash case is a clear demonstration of what was predicted in the 1997 book, The Sovereign Individual. It predicted the appearance of Bitcoin, the freedom it will give to people, governments, response, and the outcome. So there's 21 quotes. And I haven't followed the Tornado Cash news in super deep detail, but I know that it was, it is a thing that deals with kind of freedom of speech and code and kind of civil rights and freedoms. So I think it is an important one for us to look at and learn more about. But for the purpose here, we just wanted to read through some of these quotes from the sovereign individual. So the information age will put unprecedented power in the hands of the individual. Armed with the power of microtechnology, telecommunications, and personal computers, individuals will be able to conduct business, amass wealth, and communicate globally with a level of independence that is unparalleled in history. One of the key innovations driving this shift will be digital money, which will allow for secure, private, and instantaneous transactions across the globe. This new form of currency will transcend national boundaries and governmental controls, ushering in an era of unprecedented individual empowerment and economic freedom. Oh, and I see in the chat, I'm getting a note from Kieran, and he's the one who built Zap.stream. So I wanna say, hey, what's up, Kieran? You may have some questions for me about how it's going because I had a little bit of some hiccups with an earlier attempt to stream yesterday. So all of this is really kind of a test that I'm running to see if I can stream effectively later on today when I'm hosting Bob, and we're going to talk about Boardwalk Cash. Okay, so that is that one. The next quote from Sovereign Individual. In the digital age, individuals will be able to leverage new technologies to achieve unprecedented levels of financial independence and security. Now, remember, this was written before Bitcoin was invented. I think they published this like in the late 90s, if I recall correctly. So they were like, they saw that this future could be done, like all the right parts and pieces were there to enable it to work, but it hadn't been figured out yet. So it was still just conceptually interesting, but they actually predicted a lot of this stuff, right? The next quote here, digital currency will create new opportunities for wealth creation and preservation, allowing individuals to accumulate and transfer wealth more efficiently. And I think, again, it sort of really speaks to the existence of Bitcoin. With the advent of digital money, individuals will have the power to protect their wealth from confiscation and devaluation by governments. So how would that possibly work? In the 90s, there, I think DigiCash and some of the Xiaomi and eCash stuff had already been sort of proposed, but nobody had really figured out how to do this, but they saw it coming. More on digital money. So the emergence of digital money will fundamentally alter the balance of power between the individual and the state. As individuals gain the ability to encrypt their communications and transactions, states will respond with draconian measures, attempting to crack down on what they perceive as threats to their authority. The state will employ all its coercive powers to try and prevent the erosion of its tax base and control over economic transactions, even if it means violating civil liberties. So obviously that's an important one that we want to keep an eye on, because we do see some of these overreaches happening, and ideally we can protect from those overreaches by pushing back in smart ways and ensuring that the lines don't get crossed. Expect a backlash against technological advances that undermine state power, with laws and regulations aimed at limiting the use of encryption and other privacy tools. And you can see that, how do privacy tools work? How would encryption get limited? What kind of disaster would that be for freedom, for free speech, for people's individual rights? In their desperation, governments may even resort to criminalizing the mere possession or use of certain technologies, branding them as tools for criminal activity. In the final analysis, the struggle between the state and the sovereign individual will be a defining feature of the information age, with each side deploying ever more advanced strategies to outmaneuver the other. And this, I think, when I think about the advanced strategies to outmaneuver, this is one that doesn't so overtly claim open source relevance, but I think it actually is a strong case for the open source movement, because if you have this kind of asymmetry of power between sort of the state traditionally and the individual, I think you need the individual to be able to act as a kind of collective with a lot of kind of that voluntary energy, able to correct for the asymmetry. So if you sort of in a race, you want to be the single high-powered state, or do you want to sort of be the many, the masses who can collaborate and find even better? So in a cat and mouse game, I think it's, they're different strategic points, of benefit and pain, but yeah. Okay, as more people embrace decentralized technologies, the collective power of individuals will grow, making it harder for governments to impose their will. The efficiencies and capabilities of digital technologies will outpace the regulatory frameworks of states, making it impossible for them to keep up and enforce their laws effectively. I think we see this already, as most of the laws from states are actually built around times before these technologies existed. Like take something far back as the U.S. Constitution, which is a great document, but it's built in a world assuming that we don't have really good information systems, and we actually do have really good information systems today, like very fast. So and empowers everybody. So I think, the more that regulatory stuff and lawmaking is always going to trail the frontier of what can be done with technology. And I think technology is going to be the force that moves the world forward, and sort of regulatory frameworks will always be playing catch up. Individuals will increasingly move their assets and operations to jurisdictions that offer more freedom and less regulation, forcing states to compete for residents and capital. And we see this happening in the U.S. already. There's been a huge exodus from California, which is it's the state where I live. Beautiful weather, beautiful coastline, but it's a very fiat mindset overall, and it's a very controlling, oppressive government. So you see people, especially I think the pandemic kicked off, you see people moving to, Austin, Texas, or Miami, Florida. So places that offer more freedoms, people can kind of pick up, move their assets and operations to other places. You saw, very notably, this happened with Tesla. They used to be sort of, I think, headquartered here. I think they've now moved that headquarters to Texas. So, you're seeing this happen in real time, continues to be the case. Competition among jurisdictions will force states to reduce their size and scope as they vie to attract mobile capital and labor. And, again, the pandemic, I think, was a real accelerant to this. Now, I think the opposite side of this coin is people say, look, there's no better place to be than San Francisco if you're building AI. Like, okay, I would generally agree and endorse that position, just because the information sharing among people at the dinner parties and hackathons, there's value. But the broader, you sort of zoom out the scope of if people can work remotely and they can contribute and collaborate all over the world, it's a much more general point, I'd say. There's maybe specific exceptions, but I think the general point is true, that it's easier to collaborate all over the world. And now you can do that and be much more mobile with your capital and labor. In the long run, the adaptability and resilience of individuals will enable them to overcome state-imposed constraints as they innovate and find new ways to thrive. The decentralization of information will lead to the collapse of the state's ability to monopolize truth and impose ideologies. I think this idea of the state's ability to monopolize truth is a good one that I think is very relevant to Nostr, because whether it's directly the state or the way the state's money enables fiat centralized organizations, the requirement to monopolize the truth is something that all of our media and most of our technology platforms today still reserve as their own abilities and rights. And the thing that I get really excited about with Nostr is that I think it allows people to have a better estimation, their own sort of estimation, own judgment on what is truth. And you don't have to rely on the state or a certain media outlet or media brand or television channel or centralized platform like Twitter or X. You actually can view notes and know that they were sent by a specific person that you may have a relationship with. You may have been able to verify it's them, and it's sent by them, and you can deliver it in the order that you want to read them. So you actually get a lot more ways to sort of introspect, understand, and verify what is being said. And you can change, I think upstream of truth is really algorithms can shape what people choose to publish. So people may not choose to publish the truth if they know that their stuff is not going to get distributed, right? So nobody fully deserves freedom of reach, but if you keep nerfing people, you will find that it shapes behavior. People stop saying the things that get nerfed. So in a system like Nostr, it actually adds a lot more clarity on how, what's going on. Everything's open source and transparent, and you can understand what you want. If somebody's behaving badly, you can move. So I think this, in a sense, is a, again, written in the 90s, but kind of hinting at the kinds of things that Noster approaches. Governments will no longer be able to control the flow of capital or labor. People and money will move freely, seeking the most favorable conditions. So kind of a repeat of that same concept, kind of reiterating that concept. Legitimacy of the state will erode as people realize they can achieve security, justice, and prosperity without it. They're down with the bureaucrats and all the waste. The cost of projecting power across borders will become prohibitive, making it difficult for states to maintain empires or even large territories. This kind of power projection idea, I think, was popularized by that, as it relates to Bitcoin, was popularized by the military guy who wrote that book. I forget his name right now, but I think this idea of power projection through the proof of work mining is actually maybe the ultimate power projection. And actually, the battles that may be fought in digital worlds are probably going to be more important than battles fought in the physical world. Like, we'll just those will fade away to some extent, and hopefully it can lead toward more peace and harmony. But if there are battles to be fought, I'd rather them being bits than atoms. The rise of the sovereign individual will lead to a flowering of personal freedom and self-expression as people are no longer constrained by the dictates of centralized authority. As individuals gain greater control over their own lives, there will be a resurgence of creativity and innovation driven by the liberated human spirit. I think this is spot on. I mean, you see people, resurgence of creativity. You see so many more channels for people to get their messages out, get their creativity out. You see all these new tools to enable more people to create. You see much greater diversity of forms of creation, channels where the creation occurs. Obviously, AI tools, for their pros and cons, but I think one of the pros, despite many having concerns around sort of their centralization, I think one of the pros is that they really do enable people to create in new ways. And I think we'll find that open source alternatives to some of the state-of-the-art stuff will keep them more open and less of the kind of like centralizing forces that have caused a lot of the problems we have on the internet today. So I'm here for the resurgence of creativity and innovation. Be weird, be yourself, be a liberated human spirit, and don't feel like you have to hang around with the more traditional ideas that people want to push. Yeah, so that's the 21 quotes from the from The Sovereign Individual. It's a great book. I first read it a long time ago, so I don't recall step by step all the details, but you can see from that list, it's a great set of ideas that were way ahead of their time. And I think, we're just now starting to see the beginnings of the realities for how we do it. I think Bitcoin was an early one, 15 years ago, but it's really coming into its own with the kind of visibility it gets today on kind of the, traditional financial and governmental stage. People are starting to pay attention and recognize. And then I think Nostr is, under the radar in a sense. It's like very small compared to Bitcoin, but I think it also touches on a lot of the themes that book touches on. So I'm excited for this future. I want it to happen. I want to help it happen faster. One of the things I'm doing to try to help it happen faster is I'm hosting these talks where I want to just hear more about and play with these tools myself, and hear from the people building these tools and kind of walk through screen sharing, understanding what they're building, and seeing if I can just ask all the dumb questions and try to understand like how these things are meant to work and how they're supposed to work, and hopefully get more people contributing and more people collaborating on helping build this future, because it's one that I'm really passionate about, and I hope that we can help accelerate the success of this future. So the first talk is actually coming up in about an hour. We're going to do a session with Bob from Boardwalk Cash, which is an interesting eCash project that is building a new type of wallet to handle eCash, and the interface to the wallet, the eCash is presented in dollar denominated terms. There's some sort of, so in a sense, you can think of it like a stable coin, but built all natively on kind of Bitcoin Lightning eCash primitives. So very, open, neutral primitives. So that's the first one coming up. In about 60 minutes, we're going to start that. We'll kick that off. At some point soon, I'll end this stream and then we'll actually kick that one off a little bit later today. But yeah, I'm excited to start getting more of these kinds of builder discussions going. If you're building something, reach out. I'd love to learn about it. I want to help sort of cross-pollinate and get more people's thoughts and thinking going together on this. Yeah, let me know. I've got a few queued up. So Bob is today. I've got a few others queued up that we'll probably do over the next days and week or two. So getting a bunch queued up, but always looking for more. Always looking to play with new projects. I always want to, ask the dumb questions and try to click around and figure out what's going on with these things. So hopefully you can join me for it. Play with these tools yourselves. Come asking good questions of me, of the creators of the projects. Try to sort of get everybody more informed about how to use this freedom tech better. So anyway, that was the main point of the video. I'm mostly just testing for the live stream we're about to do. So if you want to hear more about Boardwalk Cash and stablecoins built on kind of the Bitcoin Lightning eCash ecosystem, come join this session we'll do with Bob starting in about an hour. So I'll publish that back on Nostr. You'll see it here on Zap.stream, and I'll have it on YouTube as well. So thanks again for coming, and I will catch you shortly. Goodbye.